לילה יורד, יברך לך, ערב של שושנים, נצא נא אל הבוסתן, כל שמינו לבונה, לרגלי
Mute everyone.
ורוח שושן ושפט, הווה
Well, and I
שיר
need back support if I sit back here. I'm
שחר ומעיונה, ראשך מלא כללים, פיך הבוקר שושנה, הכתפנו לילה יורד לאט, ורוח שושן ושפט, הווה אלך שלב שיר בלט, זמר של
Okay, everyone. I think we're slowing down and people showing up, so I think it's a good time to start. So welcome to our Chai Mitzvah Tikkun Leil Shavuot Part 1. We're really happy that you're joining us, and we're looking forward to a great evening. Some of you are already familiar with the Chai Mitzvah program. We're a nonprofit organization whose mission is to engage and build Jewish community. We do this by combining meaningful text-based conversations in small groups like we'll have tonight, with individual commitments to social action and personal spiritual growth. At the end of this program, if you'd like to know more about starting your own Chai Mitzvah group or joining an existing group, I'll be really happy to discuss. So tonight we're going to celebrate Shavuot, welcome Shabbat, and enjoy some of that text-based conversation. We're a large-ish group, but we'll break out into smaller conversation groups for some of the discussions. And when we do that, I'll break you into groups, and then when it's time to come back, you'll get a warning, like a 1-minute warning. And if you have a choice of anything to click, remember to click on Return to Main Session. You will be brought back without doing anything, but if you have a choice, just you'll know that. Okay, so let's start by lighting candles to welcome Shabbat and Yom Tov. Join me if you have candles. If you don't, I'm lighting for you. We're adding an extra candle tonight to show support for the many who are struggling in these difficult times.
Remember, if you're lighting, your Shabbat blessing gets an extra V'shal Yom Tov because it's a Chag.
Here is the extra candle. And here are the Shabbat candles. And Yom Tov. Okay. Baruch Hu, Baruch Shema. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kedeshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu l'adlik ner shel Shabbat v'Yom Tov.
Amen.
Amen.
So as we enter into the study time, we're going to do some interesting text study on Shavuot tonight. And I'd like to, our study is based on the 10 Commandments. If you're going to be joining us tomorrow evening as well, some of the work will be done tonight and it will be continued tomorrow evening since it was too much to fit into one night. I'd like to begin, and Elie Wiesel said that modern Jewry is like a messenger who is on his way to fulfill his mission and gets hit on the head and gets knocked out. And when he comes around, he doesn't remember who sent him, where he's going, what he's supposed to be doing. Imagine if the messenger were to look through his belongings and come across a little notebook, and that little notebook had the answers to all those questions. Who am I? Where am I going? What's my mission? And what's the message? As you read the notebook, think of your own. As the messenger read his notebook, he would think about everything that was written there and regain clarity and reawaken who he is, where he's going, and what his mission is. Perhaps you have a notebook, literal or figurative, and something short and simple that contains what your core values are, what your standards of behavior are, your principles of interacting with others in the world, and beliefs upon which you base your decisions. Think about that tonight as we go through our study of the 10 Commandments, because those 10 Commandments are the little notebook, and they imbue us with the values that we need to go forward with our lives and make the proper decisions. So as we go forward, we're going to look at some of the dibrot. We're going to begin actually with diber number 10. So we're working backwards from the Aseret HaDibrot, and we're looking at the one that says, do not covet, and seeing your life as a gift. And I'm going to do a little introduction to each of these and then introduce the sources and the questions for conversation. Those questions for conversation will be dealt with either as a large group where people will just answer, a couple people, will take turns, and some of them will be done in breakout rooms. We live in a world where many people believe that success comes from money or fame. Others believe that success is measured by less tangible things like family, love, education, and talents. And I think we've had a lot of time in these few months to reflect upon where our success and how our success is measured. Envy or coveting can cause those who have not achieved success to be constantly unhappy. But ironically, those who have achieved success are often bewildered that happiness doesn't necessarily follow the big achievements that they've made in life. So it seems everybody's kvetching, either those who have achieved or those who haven't achieved. And how can our tradition shed light upon that paradox? We're going to look at two texts. One, Webster's definition of success. It's always important to start with Webster and a definition, the attainment of wealth, favor, or eminence. And the other from Pirkei Avot, the teachings of our ancestors. Ben Zoma would say, who is rich? One who is happy with his lot. We turn our attention to the questions for conversation, which always follow the sources. So that's how the evening is set up. And when we look at that, we wonder about the conversation points that are here. How do you define success? And how do you define wealth? What does it mean to be happy with what you have? And what is the relationship between being happy with your lot in life and ambition? And what I'd like to do at this point is look at some of these questions and call upon people just from the large group, and we'll do a few responses to these questions. You can respond to any of the ones that are up on the screen, and then we'll move on to the next diber. So everyone will not get a turn for every question that we ask, but we ask you to limit your responses to 1 minute, and so that we can spread it around and give turns. If you'd like to be called on, if you have a comment, please raise your hand and Nina will unmute you. How do you define success? What is your definition of wealth? And what does it mean to be happy with your lot? And is being happy with your lot and ambition related?
I see Jill. I'm going to unmute Jill. There. Jill, maybe you can unmute yourself. You're not unmuting. Hold on. Jill, unmute. Okay, go ahead. Jill. You're still mute. Hold on.
No, it says all of us have been unmuted.
Yes, because I couldn't do it herself. Okay, go ahead, Jill. What is your answer? Okay, that's just strange.
Try someone else and see if it works, and you can come back to her.
Okay. Does anyone else have an answer that they'd like to give?
How do you define success? How do you define wealth? We don't have control. We can't unmute her.
There's Jill.
Yeah, Jill, I'm not hearing you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
Oh,
thank you.
awesome.
Yes.
Okay, how I define success is I think I've come to um, some realizations with all this time being home. Um, I'm in the age group where we're not supposed to, I mean, nobody's supposed to go running around a lot, but, we're supposed to be home all the time. So there's been enormous amounts of time for self-reflection. And I'm one of those people who runs around a lot. And I thought when I had to be in, I would go insane. And I felt very fortunate and, in a way, successful when I have not gone insane at all. That I've realized that I can be content being with myself, being with my own thoughts, contacting people that I feel I need to contact, and feeling like I can make a difference here in various outside venues, on the telephone. So to me, success means being able to use the skills that you have to help yourself and to help other people, no matter what the situation, no matter where you are, no matter what the limitations are. Being able to think through how you can be productive and
Jill,
make a
move your finger.
contribution.
You're covering.
Pardon me?
There you go. Okay, you had your finger on.
I was probably better off the other way.
No.
So I
is that-
want to throw a question into Jill's comment, because I'm wondering if we could think about this. A lot of times when people say, I guess I'll be happy with my lot, it's sort of said with an air of resignation. It's like, okay, then I'll settle for my lot and it's okay, it'll be good enough. But I wonder if that always needs to be the case, or if saying I'm happy with my lot can have a more positive connotation than it's historically had. So I was throwing that question into the other questions as well. I can't find the person who's speaking. There she is. Okay.
Oh,
so-
yes, Lori.
Yeah.
You are unmuted, I hope. Can you unmute yourself, Lori?
I unmuted myself.
Good, good. I think we're going to have to unmute ourselves because when I do it, nothing happens. Okay.
I think that the phrase "with your lot" is problematic in a sense, because I think that I agree that there's some negative connotation, but I think, I think it's the phrase for me, if you said, happy with who you are, happy with what you have, happy with your life, that's, I guess, all what your lot is. But when you say your lot, I hear that negative connotation. So I don't think it's the sense of what it is. For me, it's a semantic thing of that negative connotation.
Jill, Jan.
Yeah.
Well, I'm certainly in an interesting lot now. I just turned.
You just became mute.
Am I muted?
No, now you're good. I didn't hear you.
My mother used to say, when you have a good experience, you tuck it away like money in the bank, and you draw on it when you need it. So I guess I'm a millionaire, which I'm drawing interest now because, this is the way it is. I really don't like to be one that complains, and I am able to find something, even if it's making someone smile, every day. So I've had an interesting life, a good life. Would I like it to be a little bit different? Yes, but this is what I have. So it gives me the challenge, and the fact that my brain is still working and I'm able to figure things out gives me tremendous satisfaction. So Words with Friends, I recommend it.
Thank you. Nina,
Margaret.
I just want to link to what's been said. I found it took me a long time to get here, probably, I won't say how many years, but decades. The happy with my lot is honestly happy with our lot is, in my opinion, is not really taking what other people think of us, of me. And it took me a long time to get there because you never be happy if we're relying on other people. If I'm relying on other people, what they think of me, and I think the comments before me kind of bear that out. You know, so it's a self-judgment, and you can always find the silver lining in anything as long as we are in charge of our own attitude, happiness, whatever it is.
I'm going to go to the next bear. Okay, Nina, do you want to flip the screen forward? And these are challenging, all of them, and actually they touch upon different areas of our life, but each of these debrot, each one touches on the previous one. You know, they're all interconnected. So if we look at false witness and the power of speech, human speech.
Oops.
Human speech allows us to comfort people, collaborate with other people, but also human speech can cause a lot of pain and unhappiness. And so there's a responsibility that comes with the power of speech. And sometimes saying something negative can also have a positive result. You could warn somebody about a danger or warn them not to do business with someone that's dishonest. This is called lashon hara letoelet. So it's a little different than just lashon hara that you might think of, which is negative speech. This is negative speech with a positive consequence. And so you still need to be careful while using it. We're cautioned. But let's look at what the text says. And text 1, source 1, says that there are 7 conditions in this situation for lashon hara letoelet. You know it's true, you know it's bad. You tried to speak to the person yourself if that would work. You aren't going to exaggerate. You have pure intentions for a positive purpose. The positive purpose cannot be achieved in another way, and no more harm will come to them than it should. Just take a moment, if you don't have the study guide, and just read this to yourself before we start to work on this question. It's a very challenging question. You know it's true, you know it's bad. You try to first speak to the person yourself. You aren't going to exaggerate. You have pure intentions for a positive purpose. The positive purpose cannot be achieved in another way, and no more harm will come to them than it should. All very serious situations. Have you ever been in a situation yourself where you've needed to employ lashon hara letoelet? In your experience, did all 7 of these conditions apply, or does 1 or 2 particularly stand out for you? You can speak in general terms. If you don't want to share something very specific and personal, you can respond to this set of conditions in a general way if you're more comfortable.
Okay, so I only see you as Temple Shalom, but I'm calling on you.
It's Sharon.
Hi, Sharon.
I should have changed that because I hope I'm not causing a problem back at my temple because they're having a service. So I read these and I go, wow, that is just what I did when I wrote a letter to a person. The things were true, they were bad. We've spoken to the person many times. Nothing was exaggerated. Pure intentions for the positive purpose of no longer having that person on this committee because it's divisive. It's just really hard to work with that person. The positive purpose can't be achieved any other way. No harm will come to them. No more harm will come to them than it should. And, you know, I feel like that's what I've just done, sending this letter. And you do have to point out painful things sometimes to a person, but I think the outcome, and I can't even go into the details of the committee that this person is on, but it's a committee that's working on a very tough situation, and we don't need this person to make it worse.
Thank you very much for sharing, because you were very brave to share, and I appreciate it very much. Anyone
Lisa
else?
also has her hand up.
Okay.
Lisa, are you unmuted?
Yes, I should be. Can you
Good,
hear me?
good. Yeah.
When I saw this, the first thing that came to mind was dealing with my mother. She's had anxiety, depression. She stays in her house, agoraphobia. And we know that that's true. And we know that that's not good for her. She also acknowledges it. But I've spoken with her about it, haven't exaggerated about it. The positive intentions are, you know, to have a life more like she wants, but she doesn't allow herself to. So I don't think the purpose could be achieved any other way except you need to speak with your doctor, you need to speak to da-da-da-da-da. And, you know, what this would not be as harmful as continuing the way she has been for so many years. So I saw that the first is, like I said, in relationship to my mother and just working with her. So that's the first thing that went into my brain.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I really appreciate your sharing a story from your life, both of you that have shared. Any others want to speak to these points that the Chafetz Chaim lists? Rabbi Yisrael Kagan cites these conditions, and you know, do you think that they would work? Have you ever been stuck on one of these if you've had to deal with a situation?
Jill.
This reminds me, and correct me if I'm wrong, please, Nina. It reminds me a lot of Tochicha, which we talk about where in one of the Chai Mitzvah. You know, but we've done so many in our group already. But where, and I think a lot of us find this very difficult, and the person who just spoke does. I worked with teenagers for 110 years, and as time went on, they became more and more involved in social media, which became more and more painful. And it became necessary for us to be very confrontational, which counselors, that's not a comfortable place to be. But in order to point out how destructive, I mean, really cruel, serving nothing positive. So there really was no way to, we didn't find to deal with it other than speaking to the person, and we would like to do it ourselves rather than get anybody outside involved. Be very specific, let them know that we thought they were good people who were behaving in a terribly destructive and not good way. And we would try to do it very privately so it wouldn't be embarrassing or humiliating. So it was something that we, you know, that in my professional life, that it seems like this came up a lot.
Thank you, Jill. You brought to mind something that I deal with in my work. I teach a course in pastoral counseling to rabbinic students, and this, you know, we always look at confidentiality and how you speak to people, and if you have to break a promise to keep something silent, or you need to inform somebody about something that might happen that's not a good thing that they should plan to, you know, protect themselves for. And you look at situations like these text conditions, and you may have a situation that's true, and you know, you're trying to help someone and they've already tried to speak to somebody about it and they're not exaggerating and they have a positive purpose, and what can happen so that no harm is done. And I think it's so difficult because the end result, you know, criteria 7 says that no more harm would come than it should. And how do you really try to protect, you know, someone when in a situation like that? Other people that would like to contribute to these questions, have you ever been in a situation like this, and did all of these were part of the situation for you.
Don't see any more hands for this.
Okay, then I'm going to go on. And I'm going to look at DeBear number 8, if you could put that one up on the screen. Do not steal priceless possessions. And we have a short question and a short text, but this is really loaded. This is a very interesting question that we ask. So the source from the Talmud Baba Metzia says, Rava says, someone who borrows without permission is a thief. Very short teaching, very deep teaching, very significant ethical teaching. Someone who borrows without permission is a thief. And the question is, this we're going to do in breakout groups in a minute. So let's just hear the question. How has technology changed our sense of personal property? And do we perceive our online shopping history as a personal possession? How has technology changed our sense of personal property? And how does our online shopping history, how is it perceived as a personal possession? Sorry, but the text was gone and I couldn't refer to it.
Sorry, I know we're going to
Okay.
break into groups, so I have to take.
Okay, so how many, we are going to split you up into groups to process these questions and then come back into the larger group to share. So.
Okay, so we have 4 rooms and you will be automatically put into them. And after 5 minutes, you will come back. You'll return to the main session. So, and we're looking forward to hearing what you say, how you answer this question about technology and your personal history.
You'll have a
Hello, Betty. Hello, people who have just joined. We're in breakout rooms right now, but we'll be joining again as a big group in about 30 seconds and continuing our discussions. Welcome. Hello, everyone who's returning. Hello and welcome back. Looking forward to hearing what you discussed.
I'm not ready for that.
Everyone's coming back now.
Okay.
So Nina, do we want to do a little sharing of people's, key points from their discussions? I think ours was very interesting. I was in a group. It was very fascinating.
Yes, let's do it. Would you like to start?
Does anyone, I'm not going to be the spokesperson for my group, but ladies, would anyone like to share from our discussion in, I guess we were group 1 or whatever number we were? I don't know.
Where did she say Temple Shalom was?
Lisa or Margaret?
Sharon Berman.
Marcia cannot be seen.
That's okay, as long as we can hear you. There's nothing we can do about that now. Nina, do you want to call the people to speak from the groups? And we're just...
Sure. I don't remember who was in which group. So wait. I think I see Howard. Did you want to share what your group said?
Unmute.
Yeah.
I don't even know what group I'm in.
Yeah, Marcia, you were in group 3.
I'm with you?
Yeah. So,
Okay. Hi, Bernice.
Hi.
Thank you, Howard.
You're welcome. Basically I think the gist of what we discussed was that these big companies are bullies and they force you to sign waivers so they can do anything they want with your personal information, or they don't let you get onto the platform that you want to or need to be on. And, it's creepy. I mentioned that if I look for like a rake online or something, my wife tells me you must have been looking for a rake. Getting advertised for it on her computer because we're using the same, so some nameless, faceless, creepy guy out there knows that we live in the same place with the 2 different computers. It's really creepy. And, at a certain point, you don't have any choice because a lot of business you do has to be done this way. You can't get a hold of anybody. Calling these big companies on the phone that you deal with, you could be on hold for an hour And if you're lucky, if someone answers the phone, it's the right person to talk to. Sometimes it's not. So there's the, the bully factor and the creepy factor.
Guess we have to turn off the
If I could,
Margaret?
I'll debrief for our group, and if everyone wants
Yeah.
to add, I think we talked about several things about when we click, as Howard said, when we click it, you don't know what you're agreeing to, and if you don't agree to it, how's that information being used? If you post something to Facebook, as Reb Deb said, that goes anywhere. And then the other thing is this information being used to harm us or the society? In some cases, it can be used for harm. And sometimes it can be used for good, but still there's no control. And we have no regulation personally, collectively, and no one's really regulating this. So I think it's a difficult situation for all of us.
We sort of have an online pandemic going on that's accompanying the other situation in the world. And how are we really monitoring this now? I mean, it's a source, we have Zoom bombing and everything else that's going on. All of a sudden, things we never thought, we would have to be dealing with at this time. We'll take maybe one more comment on this DBER, and then we're going to move forward because we have two more and they're big ones. So I want to make sure that we get everything in tonight. If no one else, I'm going to go to the next text. If you can display text number, 7 that we're going to next.
Oh my God.
Okay. Whoops. Hang on.
Oops.
7.
Okay. So text number 7 talks about do not commit adultery when loyalty is challenged. And we're going to look at the importance our tradition places on the sanctity of marriage and its message during a time when social mores and commitments to other people are shifting. And we have a contract, which is a give and take, where each party is interested in their, we have 2 or more parties in order to create something for the benefit of the other, or better yet, for the benefit of the whole. And so in a covenant, we have sort of the merging of identities from the I to the we. And that's a really good way to think about it. In Judaism, we have covenantal relationships. We have the people of Israel and our relationship with God, which is what we commemorate and celebrate at this particular holiday of Shavuot. And also marriage, between 2 individuals, which is spelled out in the contract, in the ketubah, that people enter into in the marriage contract. So the 10 commandments spell out our relationship with God and the covenant we have there. So we've got 2 different covenantal relationships in Judaism that we're going to look at. And if we look at text number source 1, it says, I, God, will maintain my covenant between me and you, to Abraham, and your offspring to come,
So
as an
Arkansas,
everlasting
Florida,
covenant, as an everlasting
New Jersey,
covenant.
and I don't know where the 4th one was.
Okay, we need everyone to be muted. Bernice, if you could please mute yourselves, because you're talking over me and I can't teach. I, God, will maintain my covenant between me and you, Abraham, and your offspring to come, as an everlasting covenant throughout the ages, to be your God and to your offspring to come. Okay. So the question is, which relationships in your life would you consider to be contractual and which are covenantal? Which is a
I don't
very,
have the
very,
right thing, no.
please, can you mute yourself? Thank you. This is it's a very serious question. It's something to really consider as we go into the breakout groups to look at this. And also, is there a difference between our relationship with other human beings and our relationship with God? These are probably the 2 big questions of the night. These are showstoppers. So as you go into your breakout groups, take 5 minutes to review these, and then we will come back and process these.
I shut my, um, I don't answer the telephone.
Marcia?
Yeah.
Hi. I see you're back from your room.
I didn't push anything.
Oh, that's okay. Everybody's coming back now anyway. Which one were you in?
3.
Ah. Well, everyone should be back in any second. There
I
we go.
don't know how to stop this. I don't know how to.
Yeah, it wasn't nearly long enough.
I'm sorry.
We agree.
It was just a drop in the bucket. I mean, it was, we can't cover it all, but I think it's enough to get a stimulating discussion going. And, if people have a sharing that they'd like to do, a 1-minute sharing from their group, or if it raised something in the group that's really interesting going forward to consider, that other people might want to think about, we'll take maybe 2 of those, and then we need to go to the last debate so that we can close on time. So we'll take 1 or 2 comments from the different groups.
Deb?
Do you have a
Deb,
comment?
how do I stop this from happening?
We can't address that right now.
How do I stop?
Nina?
Yeah.
Please mute because we need to go
Okay,
on.
okay, go ahead.
Anyone like to contribute a comment to this from your group discussion, or any questions it brought up in terms of what's going on in the world between, a covenant, a contract, what you might have discussed that might be worth sharing for other people? Dan?
Sorry.
We can hear you.
Sorry. Okay. Yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah, I think that, in short, caring about, honoring one another, caring about one another, and that trust. Covenant is basically trust, that we honor another, and that we don't just do what's convenient, but we do what's for the good of others, for the common good.
Others, any other thoughts? We'll take 1 more before we go on.
With nobody else.
Okay. If not, we go to debate number 6. And when you put that up, is there a way to enlarge it? I was going to ask your reader. Okay. Rabbi Jonathan Sachs from God in Auschwitz. And if someone would like to read this, just raise your hand, and you can unmute yourself and be the reader on this one. Sheila? Go ahead.
Okay. When I first stood at Auschwitz-Birkenau, God was in the command, you should not murder. God was in the words, you should not oppress the stranger. Your brother's blood is crying from the ground. God did not stop the first humans eating fruit. He did not stop Cain committing murder. He did not stop the Egyptians enslaving the Israelites. God does not save us from ourselves. That, according to the Talmud, is why creating man was such a risk, that the angels advised against it. The question that haunts me after the Holocaust, as it does today in this new age of chaos, is where is man?
Thank you, Sheila. We need to have everyone muted so that we can continue the class discussion. Okay, there are people whose icons do not show that you're muted, and it's causing a disturbance in the hearing. Okay,
So where is man?
When we look at text 6, which Sheila read by Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, I'd like to look at the questions below and the text source that says, anyone who humiliates another in public, it is as though he spilled blood. So keeping that in mind, let's go to the bottom. Again, I ask that everyone mute themselves, please, so that we can continue the class. And I am looking at the questions that say, what is included in the right to life? And is life limited to the physical? How about the emotional, intellectual, spiritual? Whose responsibility is it to secure this right. And we're going to do this in a large discussion format. So, people who have comments, you need to raise your hand and Nina will unmute you one at a time, or you can unmute yourselves one at a time after she calls on you.
I'm looking for a hand.
What is included in the right to life? Right to life?
Well, if no one's answering, I can start out with a thought I have. It asks, is life limited to the physical? How about the emotional, intellectual, spiritual? And in my opinion, it is not limited to the physical. But the question that I'd love to hear the answer to is, whose responsibility is it to secure this right? Is it on the individual? Is it on society? We have it kind of going on both ways now. We have big anti-bullying campaigns for kids. We also have our own. Someone told me today, you can only feel bad if you allow yourself to feel bad. You have to remember that you have to feel good about yourself and remember that you are good. You can't let someone take away your spiritual or your emotional right to have a comfortable life, a happy life. Yes, Jill, I will unmute you. Jill, I think you have to unmute yourself.
I did. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Somebody said before that it took her decades to come to the point where she was the judge of herself. And that kind of is what you were just saying. And, if you watch little kids, they are so susceptible to what other people have to say. And not even little kids. I mean, probably people of all ages, just depending on what happens in your life and how you're able to come to the point that that person was talking about. But I also think, and it is up to us, but it's not so easy. And people for various reasons have different levels of sensitivity. And I really do feel like it's my responsibility and all our responsibility that if we see somebody hurting or, being hurt by somebody else, being degraded, it is our responsibility to speak up and then maybe work with that person if we have the opportunity, if it's somebody who's important to us, to help that person realize that, hey, the bottom line is it's up to you. But yeah, to me that, that's incredibly part of life. To feel, what is life if you feel terrible about yourself?
Thank you. Kenya?
Me?
Oh,
I'm sorry. No, Ken.
Yeah, you should unmute yourself. I unmuted you at the same time. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. How's that?
You're good.
Good.
Okay. I totally agree with what was just said. And, I think when I look at what's happening right now, one of my issues is people aren't being responsible. Like, I really feel like there's a power in words. And, I'm responsible for what I say because like, the last speaker just said, I don't know someone else's, sensitivities. I don't know where they are, mentally, emotionally at any moment. So I do personally have a response. It goes both ways, Yeah, you have to have the power for yourself, but people also have a responsibility to think about how their words affect others. And it's not, always I say what I feel whenever I feel it. And you have to be, really conscious. And I think that's a part of your, relationship and responsibility for your neighbor, to really be conscious and to think before you speak and know that your words have power. That's all.
Yeah, because can I add to that? Because our words can destroy someone's sense of safety and well-being.
Mm-hmm.
And, what right do we have to tamper with that? And you made me think of that. Thank you so much for your comment. We're going to wrap up after maybe one or two more comments. Jan, did you want to?
I first wanted to say, Kenya, I'm glad to meet you. And I'm so intrigued with the fan of.
Yes, Yes, you're spinning, Kenya.
It's so cute. So my comment was, because you think it's the right thing to do, you can say what you want to. I think we are exposed to that frequently by some people. And so I just can't accept that as a, because it depends on your own sense of being conscious, whatever. So that has to be explained a little bit more, or yeah.
Thank you, Jan. Final comment, anybody? No one wants to take responsibility for closing us, so I will. I will say that tonight, those of you who have joined us tonight for our sort of first session on this, and our welcoming Shabbat and our introduction to Shavuot tonight, we have studied from Diber 10 through Diber 6. Tomorrow night will include a Havdalah, and will include the Dibrot from 5 through 1. And that will be a very fascinating discussion as well. Some of you that have studied with me before, you have been exposed to some of these questions in other groups where we've tackled some of this curriculum. But, you know, depending on who shows up for these discussions, it's different every time different people show up. So I hope that this was a rich experience. We're going to close with Kiddush. And do you have anything to tell us about the links they need for tomorrow night, just so that...
Yes, I sure do. Well, there's a couple of things I wanted to say. First, I want to just share that Chai Mitzvah is very much what we did tonight, maybe a little less rushed if you do your own groups. And if you have the guide that we used tonight and you want to use it with family and friends, give it a try, and I'm sure you'll love it. Also, if you want to start your own group or join one of our ongoing groups, my email is there, and I'll send a follow-up email so that you can just ask me anything you want to about starting a group or joining a group. The other thing I want to say is that we have this great ability to get into groups now, into breakout groups. So tomorrow night's session, where we go on with our Shavuot study and we do Havdalah, is going to be actually the same link. I'm going to send everybody out an email again with the link because I want to make sure that nobody is confused. But we will meet same time, same place tomorrow.
Thank you. And if you have a cup of wine and you'd like to join me in the short Kiddush, please feel free to do so. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. L'chaim, everybody. Chag sameach.
Chag
We'll see you
sameach.
tomorrow. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Nice talking to you. Nice meeting you.
Hope to see you guys
Shalom.
tomorrow. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.